soils in Africa are inherently poor in crop nutrients.
The rate of fertilizer use is only 10 kilograms per hectare in the whole of Africa, whereas international people use over 100 in India and Asia, and Europe over, and America over 200,000.
Fertilizers, when integrated with other sources of nutrients, can improve yields and close this big yield gap that we have under smallholder farmers. Our farmers are getting, for example, a ton of maize to the hectare when they should be getting 3-4 tons to the hectare.
So if Africa has to reduce poverty and reduce hunger, it has to improve fertilizer use.
In the 80s, we had fertilizer use recommendation project funded by GTZ. They carried out work for about 10 years in all regions in Kenya.
Very often the current recommendations just do not offer enough profit opportunity for the poorer farmers.
CABI has developed a project called OFRA. OFRA means Optimizing Fertilizer Recommendations in Africa, to develop a tool or an approach that would develop fertilizer recommendations, crop and agroecological specific fertilizer recommendations that will take into account the farmer's financial capacity.
Fertilizer optimization tool, it is a tool that has been designed by Nebraska University through support from AGRA for 13 countries in Africa.
These 13 countries represent like 94% of the crop production in Africa. So they are the largest agricultural areas in sub-Saharan Africa.
Well, the fertilizer optimization tool is aimed at maximizing profit to fertilizer use. And it can be used by smallholder farmers who do not have much money for fertilizer. They can gain the most, but it's also appropriate for large-scale commercial farmers who can have the finance to fully utilize fertilizer.
We believe it will go a long way in improving our efficiency of utilization of fertilizer as a resource in the country, both for the scientists, the extension, and the farmers who are our clients.
We know our farmers usually put multiple crops. So they may have maize, they may put in beans, they may have soybeans, they may even want to do potatoes. So how does the farmer know how much to put on which crop? So the fertilizer optimization tool helps the farmer to maximize the returns on that particular piece of land.
We have had problems in determining the rates of application and the types of fertilizers that should be applied, when they should be applied, and the impact on productivity. So the tool will go a long way in defining how we allocate our resources, especially at the farm level.
For farmers to adopt more fertilizer use, they need to see the profit potential. We know farmers, once they have the perception of good profit without too much risk, they do respond.
Because of the value of groundnuts, it's a high value crop. So if the farmer puts aside their investment on groundnut or the high value crop, they are likely to get more returns compared to a crop maybe like maize, because maize is basically a food security crop.
The fertilizer optimization tool has another fertilizer calibration tool, and it has also another tool which we call it nutrient substitution tool.
Generally, there's the recognition of the need to increase nutrient application, whether it's by organic means or inorganic means, such as fertilizer use. And many countries are making their policies more favorable this way. With legumes, the best response is to apply phosphorus. Well, in many countries, phosphorus fertilizer is not available. And so in order to put on the P, they have to put on the nitrogen and the potassium, and they have to pay for those nutrients. Well, that makes the fertilizer much more costly to them.
The fertilizer calibration tool will work on the method of application, what we call the 4 R's. The right fertilizer, the right rate, the right time of application, and the right method of application.
Some of the rates are too low.
In the 80s, we had fertilizer use recommendation project funded by GTZ. They carried out work for about 10 years in all regions in Kenya, and they recommended. But this is 30, 20 years later. So we need to upgrade what we had. And this tool is going to do it efficiently in a shorter time than the previous one.
If a farmer has a livestock unit and there is manure coming in, the tool is able to calculate how much we should use when it comes to the nutrients. But with the extension now, they will sit down and say, I have so much, I have 5 tons of manure, how can I use it? And through that tool, we are able to substitute so that the farmer saves on fertilizer usage, but uses what is available on farm.
By looking at research done by people in the past, we were able to bring together a lot of information, but we saw a lot of gaps. And under our current OFRA project, much research has been done in Kenya, as well as 12 other countries that are participating in this. So the tool now has been developed for 8 agroecological zones of Kenya. And hopefully we can capture most of the farmers' needs with that.
Those pepper extension materials that a simple farmer in rural areas can have access to, those should be extended as much as possible.
The frontline extension people and agro dealers can use that paper effort in the absence of computer to advise farmers on what fertilizer rate they can use for their crops.
The first version was developed in 2012 for Uganda, where they had done some nice research that allowed us to develop for 6 different crops.
Actually, what we are doing here is to validate what has already been a success story in our neighboring country in Uganda.
You may find that you may apply fertilizer on maize and also apply fertilizers on rice. A farmer who has applied fertilizers on rice is going to get a better return because rice fetches a better market price compared to maize. Yet all crops will definitely respond to fertilizer application.
After applying the fertilizers at planting, that is 2012, towards the end of 12. Now 2014, 13, I started getting high yields, bigger bunches, and high prices.
We got some economists engaged, those that know about optimization for maximizing profit, and they helped us to develop the tool.
We are in a stage that about 65 fertilizer optimization tools, agroecological zone-specific fertilizer optimization tools have been developed for the certain sub-Saharan African countries.
Now the big challenge is to get this out with farmers so that it's being used, that the extension people and the fertilizer retailers, etc., are able to advise farmers, and that some farmers themselves learn how to use it. To fine-tune it, we do advise soil testing, and that's part of the decision process. So if a farmer finds that the soil is high in phosphorus, we would ask them to ignore the fertilizer recommendation that comes from the tool and use the money for something else. Or if a field is very low in potassium, then also they might adjust the recommendation.
We always advise that for the tool, for the product of the tool to be efficient and effective, the other limiting factors has to be corrected. Like soil acidity is a limiting factor, so it has to be corrected by applying limes.
If the acidity of the soil is below 5, it needs some management for the crop to do well. Because once it is, the acid is on the higher side, it will burn the roots.
Currently, CABI, in partnership with the science advisor from the University of Nebraska, is creating awareness on the tools so that the tools will be used first to create awareness for the stakeholders, what OFRA has been doing, OFRA project has been doing, and what it has achieved, so that a common understanding will be developed on the tools, and the extension people and other stakeholders and agro dealers will make use of those tools to advise farmers to make profit on their small investment in fertilizer.
We intend to train about 2,000 people in the next 2 years to use this tool, among other technologies that we are disseminating.
We never know at the time of planting what the climatic condition is going to be. So we're working with averages across years. And so we know in some years the response to applied fertilizer will be greater, and some years it will be less. But what we can do is make our decisions on what happens most typically.
So CABI is coordinating this project, implementing and coordinating in the certain sub-Saharan African countries.